Hey nerds, welcome to another episode of the Nerd Rundown Recap. I'm Erik here, and with me tonight are two of the biggest nerds I know, Morgan, aka Big Morg 3000 Santo.
Hodor.
And the man behind the Nerd Rundown podcast, Mr. Darren Simple.
Dracarys.
Oh, very nice. Ooh. Is that from the Lion King, where they're like
I feel a
say
little
Mufasa.
flame tingle inside me.
Ooh, do it again. Today we'll be recapping and offering commentary on the latest episode of the HBO series House of the Dragon, episode 4, The King of the Narrow Sea. If you would take a moment to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't, leave a comment down below and on the video, and it really helps the channel a great deal. So like I said, if nothing else, just the like button, that really helps the channel. But if you want to stay and interact with us, that'd be really great. So episode 4 of Hot D is out, and initial impressions, Darren.
Fire and Blood. Morg, love the background. I like it.
I had to go with it for this one. Only seemed appropriate.
I love it. This episode was another banger of an episode. 444 for me this season. Very excited to be on the show and talk about this. Fully back into Game of Thrones mode because of the show. And episode 4 felt like it wasn't slow moving, but it didn't feel like maybe there was a lot happening until about halfway through the show. And we got to the brothel, and then later on, the last quarter of the show is just powerful. Really great episode. Moving the chess pieces for the rest of the season in this episode, really setting up some things. So,
yeah, Morg,
love it.
Yeah, I agree. This episode was a little bit slower. I could see how people would think it's slower, especially coming off of the way the episode prior ended. But I loved it. I mean, this is the Game of Thrones I like. Where like Darren said, the chess pieces are moving. We're getting some good character development here, and there are some pretty important things that happen. Now I'm excited. I've been loving it. Don't get me wrong, this still hasn't corrected the burns from season 8, but it's well on its way to hopefully
Preach.
bring us back into this. It's well on its way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel the same. I really loved the episode. I've really loved everything up to this point. All 4 episodes have been really, really good. This one did not have any quote unquote action, if you will, just from after last week's, or I guess the last week's
Depends on how you define action.
Yeah, well, yeah, overt violence, I should say. But we finished up with Damon, taking care of the crab feeder and all that. So this was a lot more of what we were seeing of like you said, character development, a lot of setup. So we'll kind of dig into the timeline and kind of walk everybody through what was going on, what happened. So we open up this particular episode with Princess Renera, who's played by Millie Alcock, being shown a bunch of suitors for her hand. And the first guy that's up there is this old dude, and he's talking about basically all the old stuff that he did with all the older guys, and then the very next dude is like a 13-year-old boy. And so we go from like the very old to the very young, and she's honestly having none of it. So I guess the maybe the one important portion of this is, other than the fact that she's just done, is that we got to see a set piece that we've not seen before. So Darren, what did we see there?
Yeah, we got to see the Great Storm's End, which is House Baratheon's home castle. It's the Winterfell of the Stormlands, or the Lannister house of the west side of Westeros. So it was really cool to finally see Storm's End, and you got to hear a couple names that were you may know. The very first old guy was Dondarrion, and you may know that name from Beric Dondarrion. He's the guy that could light up his sword in Game of Thrones. very loyal.
He was the dude with
to
the
the house
eye
Baratheon.
patch, right? The
Yeah. He was the guy that got brought back to life a few seven times.
Super cool.
Yeah,
Love that dude. He was super cool. Yeah.
He was great. So it was cool to see, he that's I think his grandfather.
Okay.
And then the kid was a Blackwood, and Blackwoods are of the first men, which is so some of the oldest men in Westeros are the Blackwoods. So very rich with history house, and it's always funny to think, okay, you didn't hear Blackwoods in Game of Thrones,
right?
Mm-mm.
You didn't. There's some other houses that are at prominence at this point in the story that are not in Game of Thrones, and there's reasons for that.
Right.
So, cool little intro scene with Millie Alcock's strongest episode by far.
Yeah, for sure.
She was great.
Yeah.
Especially when you see her laughing when the 13-year-old, she almost has that it's cute. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's hear the pitch, and then we get to see him slaughter a man. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, you know what?
It's badass 13-year-old.
It's not like the dude didn't have it coming. So
that is
true.
that is true. Well,
next Tuesday.
Yep. So we get we start to see, we cut back to a scene of her on a ship sailing into King's Landing because she's done, and so in a very quick way, she they have a conversation where he says, your dad's gonna be pissed that we cut the tour short early because they had a couple more stops besides Storm's End of people that she was gonna check out.
On a whole another 2 months.
Yep, she had 2 more months on the tour, so she's cutting it short. She's coming back to King's Landing all on her own. So we have another time shift, and it's been about a year or so from the last time that we saw Renera and everyone. So as she's returning, she gets thumped by Daemon and his dragon Caraxes. He gives her a little love tap as he's rolling into King's Landing, which is his return to King's Landing from his war with the crab feeder and the rest of them down there in the Narrow Sea. So we get this triumphant return of Daemon, who's played by Matt Smith. Brilliantly played by Matt Smith.
He's awesome.
He is
awesome.
I can see why people love this guy.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Phenomenal.
He's really, really great. So Daemon rolls in, and Renera, you can see the giddiness on her face as she's watching him walk through, and she's like pacing him from a distance. She's pacing him as he's walking through, and he's got this crown on, and he's got this weapon, and so he drops it as he gets close to the king. The King's Guard points their swords at him, and he, drops the weapon and suggests to the king, or recommends to the king, why don't you try adding it to the throne, and then he triumphantly says to everyone in there that he's now the king of the Narrow Sea, which kind of causes the crowd to, because he's been banished already because of his behavior. And so, and then he then bows to the king and makes, I would say empty, although he makes the statement that he's pledging his loyalty to the one true king, the king, before King Viserys. And so Morg, what was your interpretation of that particular scene and how that kind of played out?
Yeah, so a couple things here. When she gets home and she has that conversation, I noticed it's at the what the hell's the tree called?
Oh, the werewood
tree.
The werewood. I've noticed it. That common
that
theme
scene takes place after this scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, was that at? Oh,
yeah, it's a little bit after this one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Just sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Yep. No, it's okay.
Time jumping.
Yeah, the throne room. Yeah, so he's showing up. He knows what he's doing. I feel like there's more to this. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to just kneel and just no strings attached. But
there's always more to him.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're seeing he's offering his allegiance again, but at the same time, he's demanding the king to add the sword to the chairs. And you don't say that here, throw this in the chair. You don't say that to the king. Somebody, it just seems weird. And he's clearly putting on a show of strength here. He's got his new haircut.
I don't think he was putting on a show of strength. I think he was putting on a show to he can deceive Viserys very easily.
I was going to say it's a
because
manipulation. It's a manipulation.
Very good
He's-
manipulator.
He's
Yeah,
playing off
Viserys
of
is weak.
yeah, he's playing off of Viserys's weakness and Viserys's love for his brother. Like he
Mhm.
loves his
Mhm.
brother, and he
Taking advantage
keeps hoping that Damon will be different. You know, like this
Yeah.
is the chance. This is he's going to be different this time. And like Lucy with the football, you know, it just
Right.
is
Well, I
what it
do,
is.
and he did know, that the men were essentially calling him king, and it wasn't a title he gave himself. It's just that they liked him so much they were calling him it. But he was like, "Here, have my crown,"
Yeah.
which I think is another show to Viserys. Like, people like me. Like, remember that.
Right.
Like, I can,
Well,
I can lead. I can be a king.
He made that crown. So
Yeah.
one big like I can't think of the word right now, but hint that he made it was there was a ruby on it, and all Targaryens adorn their crowns with rubies. So he made that crown.
So he made
that was all part of the show.
Interesting.
So did he really get named?
Yeah.
Right.
Did he just do it himself? So
Yeah.
all right. Well, then we move into 3 scenes. At least in my opinion, we move into 3 scenes that happen. I wouldn't say fairly quickly, but they happen in succession that really kind of set up the whole plot for the rest of the episode. They move the pieces around the chessboard so that the rest of the episode can kind of play out. So they are having this is like an after party that they're having with them, with the king and Allison and Renera, and all the hangers on, I guess, or whatever, to celebrate Damon's return. And so Renera, compliments Damon, and it becomes very clear that Allison and Viserys are not happy with with the Renera for cutting the husband shopping tour short, is basically what happens. So and so they're not happy about that. And so he makes it very, very clear that's going to happen. And then there's another scene in a little bit where Allison and Renera have a heart-to-heart conversation with each other. And then finally, we see a conversation between Renera and Damon as well. So we'll kind of back up the truck just a little bit here, but as we have this conversation where they've made it clear that they're not happy with her, then we cut to a scene, and Darren, you can maybe kind of help explain how important this particular scene is. And what I find very interesting is they have that these 2 characters, Renera and Damon, have this chemistry between them, and I don't know if it's kind of sexual, but it's kind of just playful. It's kind of mutual admiration for each other. And I love the fact that when the 2 of them talk to each other, they speak in Valyrian. I think that's really, really cool. And I think that kind of separates them from everybody else. But Damon, Renera kind of seeks out Damon, and they go off to the weirwood, where the weirwood is, I believe. And
Weirwood tree.
Yeah, where the weirwood tree is. And they have this conversation in Valyrian. So kind of lay this out for us.
Well, first of all, one thing that I really liked about these 3 scenes together is, first of all, you get the scene where Viserys and Damon, they're broing it out. He's like,
Right.
"Oh, would you like to go see this thing?"
Right.
Like, it was a great segue from the previous scene where you could already see his manipulations working on Viserys, and setting him up.
But that's a great thing, and I just want to comment something real quick, and I'll put a pin in it. Maybe we'll come back to it a little bit later. But Allison tries to reach out, and Viserys belittles her in front of everyone. He belittles her, and I thought to myself, he would never do that with Emma. Like he would never have done that with his former wife. And so I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue on.
Yeah, I think I got a reason for that too. So
Yep.
You go ahead.
Yeah, well, and then the scene between Renera and Allison it's the full circle episode where it'll come full circle and they'll flip sides later on in the episode. And it's a really great scene to set it up because it sets you up as a viewer sitting there thinking, oh, they're going to make up finally.
Right.
You know, it's been 4 years since that happened.
Right.
First happened. And then the scene with Damon and Renera is really, there's some sexual tension, of course, because they're Targaryens. It's not a big deal to them. They don't think anything of it, but it is a good like setup. Again, chess piece moving. Here comes the bishop across the chessboard. Damon setting up Renera's thought process around, the sex word,
right?
And once you're married, it doesn't matter.
Well,
it's just a political maneuvering.
Yeah, and she doesn't. Factor. He talks about the marriage part, and she is inexperienced when it comes to the sex part of marriage, but she looks at it as she doesn't want to be her mom. She doesn't want to be, just a baby factory is what.
Yeah, pumping out babies till you die.
Yeah. Very much. So, her and Arya have a lot of things in common. They don't want to be the princess of a castle. They want to be a warrior.
Right.
Right. But up to that point in her life, she's only thought of sex as a duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a job.
Right.
So,
right. And you can see like a little bit how Allison's different than her in that way because she likes that. She's like, yeah, well, that's what you do. Like, this is it.
And then I wouldn't say that she likes it.
She doesn't like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that she likes it. I think she understands it.
Yeah, she understands it, and that's something you notice during that conversation is Allison starts to have those kind of like looking away things where like she's starting to click like, oh yeah, maybe there should be more to this than what I thought and what I'm doing.
Well, I think she's trying to make Renera see that she has a lot of options and she's squandering those options, whereas there are other people who never have those options. Her specifically, she never really had the option. Her dad moved her into that position. The king then took, responsibility for it for her. Yeah. But he doesn't treat her the same way that he treated his first wife. He loved his first wife. And I'm not saying that he doesn't love Allison, but he loves her in a different way. He loves her in the duty that he's required to. So we'll move.
I have a pen. I have a pen for later on.
Yep.
The pen is Allison's loneliness right now.
Yeah. And I want to say something real quick too. Two real quick things. One, I like seeing Renera's get kind of put in her place, like reminded, like, don't forget how good you have it. Like,
right.
They've done that a couple times now, like out in the woods with that before they kill the pig and they're talking, they're like, hey, you're having it good.
Yeah.
But then, the way Viserys treated Allison with that, like, kind of disregard and almost picking on her, you see Viserys he's basically becoming a drunk. Like he's drunk all the time, and it's definitely tied to whatever he has going on with him. Like you could tell he's drinking to ignore the pain, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you're seeing a little bit of a change in him too.
Yeah. All right. So then we move into the third piece of news, which really is the news from the Stepstones that Lord Corlys Velaryon, the sea snake is still pretty pissed about Viserys kind of scorning him and not marrying his daughter. And so even though she was like 12 at the time, so I don't, 2 points for Viserys. I don't blame you there, buddy. But it looks like the sea snake is going to be wedding his daughter off to one of the Sea Lords of Braavos. And this kind of pushes the small council to say, hey, we need to make a move here. And it requires Renera to do her job, and Viserys still, as always, because of his weakness, kind of wavers. He doesn't really want to do that.
He's a people pleaser.
He is a people pleaser, but it continues to show weakness. So we move out of that piece, and then we move over to what is a pretty intense set of circumstances and really scenes. So, and I will tell you a funny story about this here in a little bit, but we cut to Renera going back to her room. She discovers that there's some clothes in there and a note about a secret passage And, you know, it all leads to basically Damon had left this stuff in there so that she could sneak out of the castle with him. So, so the two of them dress up as kind of commoners. She gets dressed up as kind of a page or a, you know, like a young boy. And then, and so they kind of go out into King's Landing. And so Darren, let's talk about like what happened there. They kind of go through, or I should say more, they sneak out of the castle. What kind of happens, you know, initially, what kind of things are they seeing? What are they doing?
Well, they decide to hit the Vegas Strip. Stuff gets wild when they, you know, it is a hell of a party once that sun
more
goes
like Mardi Gras, actually.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, I mean, she's basically seeing a life she's never seen. She's seeing what the commoners do, and you know that everybody's away.
Right.
So she's seeing, you know, magic, people bartering, fights, and you know, a whole new world is opening up to her.
Right.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's like a weird, darker Aladdin twist here, you know.
And then they go, they see like a show, right?
Yeah,
There's
they
like
go
a-
and see.
Yeah.
Yep, they go and see a play where it's basically a play about who should take the heir after the baby died, and it's mocking them, of course. That's what these plays always did. And they boo when Renera gets picked. The crowd is boo, and you know, and then she kind of makes an outburst just to like try and like, no, come on, Renera's is great type thing.
Right.
But she makes a comment to Damon, which I thought was great. She just says, who cares what they think?
Right.
And he says, if you're going to be queen, you need to essentially care an awful lot what they think.
Right. Right.
Like that's your job, which I thought was good. Like it's the hint of like, there's that good side of Damon.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually trying to help, even though we clearly know he's up to no good.
Right.
Yeah.
So then
we can tell
Darren,
what he's going to do.
yeah. So Darren, then they move to another location. Talk about that for me.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about the play is they also cheer the Aegon the Aegon child birth.
Right.
And they, you know, because the realm rather put
Realm's
men would
pretty
rather put the
sexist.
realm to the torch than see a woman
Realm's
ascend the
pretty
Iron
sexist.
Throne.
Right.
And that showed her like, hey, these people don't really think of you as the heir.
Right.
Right.
So then Damon makes a move and says, come on into my van. I have some candy. And Rhaena her eyes are opened in more ways than one. First of all, she sees people liking SEX.
Right.
And it again opens her mind a little bit more. It's like, okay, this could be something I'd want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And then of course you know the sexual tension really ratchets up between Damon and Rhaena, and it really messes up Damon because he's no longer in control because Rhaena really is starting to like this.
Yeah.
And he didn't think she would. And so when she is like, I really want this.
Yep.
Damon is
He
not
gets
in control
pissed.
anymore. And he
Yep.
gets pissed, and his impotence continues from a previous episode 1, I think.
Oh, so that's not what I thought.
Yeah.
And
I thought something else.
and then he leaves.
Yeah. Yep. He can't get it up. So
See, I didn't think he couldn't. I thought this was a little bit of that. I mean, I say this loosely, good Damon. I mean, he literally is in the throes of being with his niece.
nope.
But I thought that was him stopping himself. Like, no, I shouldn't be doing this
Oh,
type
Yeah.
of thing.
No.
That's what I thought.
No. I think
no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it confirmed that it's impotence? Is this
Yes.
like
Yeah.
confirmed?
Yeah. If the
Yes.
producers and stuff kind of talked about it's
Oh, they don't
definitely
know.
it's definitely an impotence issue because of his out of controlness. Is really what it says. So yeah. So pretty big move for Renera. A pretty big event for Renera. She goes back to the castle. You know, she first gets spotted by one of the King's Guard. And then, you know, she's spotted going back into the castle through basically the front door. And then she grabs Sir Kristen, and they have, you know, she's clearly using him. And he
Feel bad for him.
Okay.
yeah, he's okay with it. Yeah. So, but
He's a
he
little hesitant. He's a little hesitant.
he does have feelings, and she doesn't. I don't think, or at
Yes,
least
yes.
she doesn't care for him the way he cares for her. So, so then that's when the episode really kind of moves into high gear, because we get we get a little bird, from if you will, that spills the beans to Otto that that Renera and Damon were in the brothel together and that they were having sex with each other. And so Otto gets
Which
told
isn't
this
true,
information. Yes and no.
But-
Yep.
right.
So they didn't
No.
actually, but they did kiss each other,
Right.
and they did.
Yeah,
and,
there were definitely.
and Viserys makes it clear later on. It doesn't
It's
really
enough to
matter
look at.
whether you did it or not.
No.
It doesn't matter. You were seen doing that, and all that. So Otto is told this information, and then we kind of go to this scene where Otto, you can see him kind of wrestling with this, because this is like a golden gift to him. This is something that this would allow him to maybe put Aegon on the throne and have Viserys, take Renera off. But I think
Big moment.
But I think he wishes it was somebody else that would deliver that news, because I think he knows that it's probably going to cost him his at least some trust with Viserys. I don't think he foresees, how far that's going to go. So, so Darren, just very quickly, that scene, what was your take on that when Otto finally goes into Viserys and tells him the news?
First of all, Rhys Ifans is absolutely murdering this role of Otto
Mhm.
Hightower. Otto is like the little finger of this story. You'll see more of that coming up in the show. If you haven't already kind of noticed a little bit about how he pushed his daughter towards Viserys. And so Otto is really wrestling with, like you said, should this be me? Because this could be this could backfire.
Yeah.
So he's smart. And then Patty Considine is also murdering this. I mean, this when he's like, I'll take
He's
their
great.
eyes, he's having so much fun on this show.
Yep.
And so, yeah, of course, Viserys, as the fathers always do, doubt the validity of this rumor, and he's upset. So it's much like when Tywin Lannister was told, he didn't want to believe that his children were
right
playing hide the
Coupling.
Yeah, coupling. Yes, coupling.
So
It's a good
Yeah,
word.
it's,
Good word from the episode. Coupling.
I think he what Otto says something.
He says
similar,
coupling.
where he
Yeah,
does
I
say
think
coupling.
He does say
right?
coupling.
Yeah.
So- All right. So
and
so
I just got to apologize. I've been saying Rhaena. It is. You're right. It is Renera.
yeah.
Rhaena. There is a Rhaena.
Close enough.
Rhaena Targaryen. So, but Renera.
So in the room,
Yeah.
because she stayed the night in the room, is Allison. So, but she's hiding, and so she hears her dad make these accusations towards the king. She sees how angry the king is, and she doesn't want to believe that Renera would do that. And so she, in the very next scene, basically orders Renera to meet her near the weirwood tree, and she comes right out and just says, "Did you sleep with your Uncle Damon?" And so that's a really powerful scene. Like, it's very, very powerful, because she basically says, "No, I wouldn't do this," but it triggers something in Renera that her dad is having her followed. And so it starts to stress. Allison still loves and cares for Renera, and you can see that she wants the best for Renera, and she wants she wants to continue to have that friendship with Renera. And Renera, I don't think she's not against her, but it's a little bit different for her. Her relationship has changed. And I don't think there's ever any going back to where they were before. I think things are only going to get worse as time goes on.
For sure.
But yeah. So then Morgan, the next scene we see is Damon kind of stumbles home from his former whore, Mysaria, her place, he kind of stirs, and she appears to be what they refer to as the White Worm, which is kind of like, like an informant network or whatever. But but anyhow, so Damon kind of stumbles home to the castle and kind of walk us through what happens next with him, because he gets nabbed by the guards like right away, and Viserys kind of has his way with him, I guess.
Yeah, he comes stumbling home. He's hurting. Like, he's not looking good. He definitely had too much fun. I feel his pain. I've been there before. Well, not everything he did. I mean, I just mean,
right.
But he goes
We'll
home.
censor that.
They grab him and say, "Hey, the king wants you," and he's like, "Let me go," and they don't let him go.
Right.
So clearly, we know the king is still pretty upset about everything that he heard, and he really wants to find out. They toss him down, and they have a conversation, and he basically admits that they were together and kind of maybe messed around, but didn't really do anything. He doesn't say why,
right.
But he admits they didn't do anything. And that's when he makes the suggestion of having the king make Renera marry him.
Right.
So make Renera. And this is something where I'm a little confused, because I know the incest stuff is big in that family, but the king seems very, like, anytime he hears about the idea of incest, he seems disgusted with it. So I don't know if it's just him, or maybe I'm misreading that. Like, he just doesn't like the idea because maybe of just the age difference.
Well, my take on it is not so much that, is it's the cards are on the table for why Damon is back there. Like, he set this whole thing up. He took Renera. He took Renera to that place so that she would be seen, so that he could manipulate her, or at least, at least that's my take on it. Darren, you may have some other thing, but that's
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And he's not against incest,
right?
But he also his parents were not related. He married Emma Aaron of House Aaron, which is a name you might know from Game of Thrones, where John Aaron was the hand of the king of Robert Baratheon. It's like one of the first scenes, his funeral. And he basically raised Ned and all those, Robert and Catelyn.
And him dying started some shit.
Yeah, his death really started that show off, and even Jon Snow's named after John Aaron. So
right. So Viserys finally shows some backbone. Really is finally what happened, or in some cases the dragon. That he still has some dragon in him. He kicks the crap out of Damon. He banishes him again. He
has a strong line there. He's like, "You are no conqueror."
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome, because I love how they refer to Aegon as just the conqueror.
Right.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and really you can kind of see the difference between Viserys and Damon. Damon knows his he knows his history, and he wants Viserys to be stronger, and he just isn't. But Viserys holds a hard line with him and banishes him out of there again. So then we cut to a scene with Viserys and Allison. They're kind of talking about Renera and what they're going to do. She blames Damon for the whole thing. Allison blames Damon for the whole thing. Doesn't believe that Renera would do such a thing. Viserys concludes correctly that Renera is not innocent. She's not the saint in this particular case. So then we get into really, and this whole thing is all like super powerful. Like, all of this stuff that happens here quite at the end is super, super powerful. So we get where Viserys, calls Renera in, and, she comes into the room, and we really get to see kind of the importance of the dagger and the secret that it holds, that we've seen all through this. And so the blade is heated up. It's in the fire, a la Lord of the Rings. And you can see like there's a message on there, and Viserys has Renera read it, and it says, from my blood comes the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire. And so he explains to her that the burden of and the responsibility of the knowledge that is encased in that particular dagger is more important than her as an individual. It's more important than him as an individual. It's more important than the throne itself. Like this message that's in this dagger is the future of the realm, if you will. So and it has to be, kind of carried down, and it is a burden. And so Darren, the importance of the dagger, I kind of talked about, but just kind of fill us in just a little bit more on that.
It's so big because this from my blood comes the prince was promised, and his will be the song of fire. Directly ties with the Game of Thrones. We talk about the prince that was promised being Jon Snow, and even maybe Daenerys, and maybe it could be both. And the whole thing is the Song of Ice and Fire, and it's really cool. But also, this is like the reason for the incest of the Targaryens.
Right.
They know that a Targaryen must be on the throne when winter comes.
Right.
And because of that vision, they decide it's going to be only Targaryens from here on out. We got to keep the bloodline pure. So it's just like the reasoning, the why behind it. And then this dagger was passed down from Aegon the Conqueror. And before that, it was
he alludes to the fact that it's hard to know who had it before.
Yeah, they don't know where it really came from.
Right before Aegon, it was the best name in all of Game of Thrones. It doesn't look like this, but this is how you say it. Aenys Targaryen.
Of course.
Yeah, had it before Aegon. He gave it to Aegon.
He's a pretty shitty guy.
We know that dagger is what kills the Night King. So the history and trajectory of this dagger is massive.
Yeah.
And it's it's wild to think like that's what that dagger says, and all that for it to be broken.
Yeah.
We're not
so
we're going, never mind. We don't need any of that.
so then he basically, at that point, then Viserys lays down the law and says, look, you're going to marry Sir Laenor Velaryon. And she says, fine, I'll do my duty, but you need to do your duty. You need to remove Otto, because he is a duty. I see what you're doing. But she kind of rebuts to him that he needs to remove Otto, that he is manipulating her or him, and he can't be trusted. So Morg, the next scene is unbelievable. Really, it's just an exceptionally powerful one. So kind of just fill us in and how that played out.
This is the big you're getting fired scene.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful scene between the two of them. Very well acted. I love watching Otto in this scene where he had very few words, but you could see the emotions in him. Like he knows it's coming, but he's still got to act his part, but he knows it's coming. But the king essentially calls him out. He starts telling a little bit of history about his father, Balon, being the hand of the king, being appointed hand of the king. And then Balon the Brave, 5 days later, a ruptured belly, dies.
Right.
And because of that, Otto went from being essentially a nobody to the second most powerful man in the entire realm, hand of the king. So he kind of notes how convenient. Now, I don't know if he's hinting that he thinks there was some foul play. I think he was. But then he just talks a little more, and he starts to point out, like, no, this is all about you. Like, he realizes the whole Allison thing. You probably sent her. Like, that was just a calculated move. You're just trying to do this. And walks up to him and takes that pin away from him and fires him. It's a rough scene, but well done, very well done.
Yeah, Darren. What was your kind of takeaway on that one as well?
What this does for the rest of the season is, now that pin I was talking about earlier from Allison being lonely. Like, can you imagine being the queen and not have your baby isn't the heir to the throne? You're not a real queen.
You gotta say goodbye.
So now Otto being relieved of his hand duty King of the Hand duty. Being relieved of that puts Allison in a position where she needs to step it up, and she's going to become a very powerful character soon.
Yeah.
And so this is the cause and effect of that scene. And episode 6 is the last episode we get to see of who played what is Renera's name? Millie Alcock, and the actress who plays, I don't remember Allison's actress's
Carrie.
name.
You said episode 6?
Episode 6 will be the last time we see them, and then they will do another time jump where they'll be 32 years old. So they have different actresses for that.
Yeah, Emily Carey is the girl who plays Allison.
So we are almost to that point where they are going to be old, and the actresses change, and shit gets crazy when that's
when it gets popping.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, the scene with Otto and Viserys is really, really amazing. But I think the theme that weaves through the entire episode is that the women in this, they really don't have any control over their lives. Renera does not have agency over herself. Allison does not have agency over herself. They are the chess pieces that the men are moving around. And I think that's the tragedy of the whole thing, is that Allison, you can see it on her. It's slowly killing her inside. She, I believe, does care for Viserys, but she refers to him as her husband, not like that first episode with Viserys and his first wife. There's an affection there. There's a love. He loves his wife, and his wife loves him. And you don't get that with him and Allison. It's not there. And so that whole theme of not having any control of yourself kind of wraps up at the very end of the episode when the Meister knocks at Renera's door and says that I have a tea here that the king has asked me to deliver to you. And he says it's in order to take care of any unwanted complications from her
mistakes or something.
Yeah. So basically it's morning after pill to make sure that she, she doesn't conceive a child. So that's the episode. That's the way it ends.
One last piece. I thought you were going there, and I know how it can be where you just start talking in your mind. It takes you elsewhere.
Yeah.
But you made a great point about the similarity, or what they have in common between Renera and Allison, is that they don't have that agency over their life. But we see such great juxtaposition in this episode during the sex scenes where Renera takes what she wants, and Allison has to have sex with Viserys' rotting body.
Right.
Just staring at the ceiling, and he even notices she's not at one point into it.
Yeah. So it's really crazy to see, like, they're in similar positions, but they are in different scenarios, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And they did that so well, and they set it up with that early scene, and then they tied it back, and that's great writing. That is really great writing.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we know exactly what's wrong with Viserys? Is he just getting infections, or?
So the throne is made. Aegon made the throne to be uncomfortable. He didn't want them to be comfortable on the throne. He was just the man. Aegon the Conqueror was the man. And so if you are not like a true king, you're going to, you've seen it, the throne is going to cut you. Yeah, and the throne's cut him up pretty good, because Viserys just isn't a king. He's
a placeholder.
He's a placeholder, and he was never meant to be king. But he got it anyway. So the throne is slowly killing him.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, gentlemen, for a great wrap up on episode 4 of House of the Dragon, the King of the Narrow Sea. Your commentary, as always, is spot on from both you guys.
I think Darren wants to say so.
This was a lot of fun. Darren, do you have the guy in the front row? Front row. Yep. Blue shirt.
Yeah.
Blue shirt.
I have a question for you both.
Yeah.
Who who's your favorite character so far? And do you agree that Firaxis is the coolest dragon you've ever seen?
No, on the second part, but he is cool. I like Dracarys from the first one is my favorite.
You mean Drogon?
Or sorry, Drogon.
Okay.
You know, when he does that whole A10 run at on the Lannisters, that is freaking awesome.
I know that was what it was.
But honestly, to this point, Otto Hightower has been my favorite. You know,
okay,
he really has been my favorite.
Good to know.
So, yep.
I also do like Drogon. Name is like somebody tried to say dragon in an accent, and they were like, "Yeah, let's roll with that." Yeah. It's Drogon. No, can I count? Can I count the? Do I get to count the zombie dragon? Does that count?
Yeah.
Well,
as far as cool, as far as coolness, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, and then my favorite character has been Viserys. He's been better than I expected him to be. We all know kings aren't the greatest thing in Game of Thrones world, so he's been a lot better than I expected in the acting. You know, I only know him as comedy, so yeah, I think he's fantastic.
Okay, yeah. I like that Firaxis has he's like a mutant dragon. His neck is longer than any other dragon. And his red scales are cool. Yeah. And his like dragon noise, he like clicks. It's almost like a clicker from Last of Us. Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And I would say Damon's my favorite so far. But Otto, it's 1A, 1B.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's been good. All right. Well, with that being said, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Let us know who your favorite character is.
Yeah, in the comments for sure. So, and you know, what was your favorite scene on this particular one? I really wish Meg would start watching this series because this would have been really nice to have a woman's perspective on this episode. Like, it would have been really, really good to have her opinion and stuff. So,
she's not very good with peer pressure, so let's just keep pressuring.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll
just pressure.
We'll just keep pushing her. And I told her already she doesn't have to watch the first series. In fact, it's fine that she doesn't because there's really nothing that you have to know. She did
watch the first.
You know.
Yeah. Did she watch Game of Thrones?
She said she didn't.
Well, the show will, when they tie into it, just make you cry a little because you remember how it ends.
Yeah. Right.
Hold up, Meg. We're gonna have to have a talk.
All right. Well, we will see you all next week for episode 5 of House of the Dragon. See ya. Bye.
Deuces.
The Ricardas.